Good morning, everyone. My name is Olga Peña. I am one of the leaders of the Immigrant and International Women in Science Network, and I'm here today with Senator Rosa Galvez to celebrate International Women's Day. It is my pleasure and my honor to be here with you, Senator. Senator Rosa Galvez is the first female Latin senator in Canada, and we are here basically to know more about you. So thank you so much for having us and to be here to give us the opportunity to interview you today. So tell us a bit more about your science story, like how, explain a little bit about the research that you were doing when you were working at Laval University, and what was your basically major accomplishment at that time and that eureka moment that when that happened.
First, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to girls and women in Latin America and around the world. I have been always fascinated by engineering, constructing and deconstructing, and always trying to find solutions. My bachelor is in sanitary engineering, which deals with water and wastewater treatment. I was lucky to be in a university back in my country in Lima, Peru, and had very good teachers and professors that were associated with WHO, and we were worried about the scarcity of water and the quality of water. Then I immigrated to Quebec because I fell in love with a journalist from Quebec City, and he went to Laval University. So he said to me, you know, it would be good to do a master's at a university in Montreal, where I immigrated. And I have always liked learning. And so the idea of keep learning appealed to me. And I was welcome at McGill, and I was very happy. This is a great institution, it's a great university. And I shift from water and wastewater to solid soil waste, contaminated soils, and groundwater contamination, hazardous substances, environmental impact assessments. And so my view of the environmental engineering field started growing. And then I went into remediation, and you talked about eureka moments. And I remember, you know, being able to develop process that will clean water, that will clean soils. And I was very happy. That thrilled many projects, and I didn't stop until today.
Awesome. That's a really good feeling, right? When you feel that moment that is the one that is cheering your path. So when you were a child growing up, like what sparked your interest in science? Which ones were those role models that really inspired you to get into a scientific career?
So I must say that it was a little bit impossible not to be in that field, because my mother is an accountant and my father is a mathematician. He was a professor in Peru in economics. So numbers were never a sort of a secret or a bad thing. On the contrary, and me and my brother, my siblings, I am the oldest of 7. Most of us went into engineering or science. So yeah, it was an interesting family because in childhood, because most of our games were counting, doing games with arithmetics, algebra, and constructing and blocks and science and discovery and nature. We had our families, the grandparents were in the mountains, so we were close to nature. And one of my grandparents had gone abroad to Europe and started studies in architecture, and then he shifted to law. So again, this idea of higher studies and keep learning, I had I think plenty of role models. So and I must thank my father, because at that time it was easy for a men to say women stay in the kitchen, women stay rearing children, you know. But he was not like that. So he has his bad temper, and he was a very serious person, not very emotional, but he was very disciplined. And so I think that overall he did well in showing us methodologies and discipline and giving us the desire for keep learning.
That's fantastic. That's great that you have that. So good that you have that support and family support and good role models. But in the development of your scientific career, do you have any barriers that you remember that, you know, whether it were financial or, you know, or any kind of this that you would like to?
Absolutely. You know, it will be, I will be lying very, very badly if I say that the life, professional life was a very quiet river. No, it was turbulent, and there was a lot of storms. And, well, you know, in Latin America, we are very, in general, very positive people, and we tend to see our glass half full and not half empty.
Yes.
And I think that that is a good attribute, a good attitude to have in life, because when women go into areas where it's dominated by in this case male, it's tough. It gets very tough, and you have to be solid, and you have to be stubborn, and you have to have a clear mind to not to shy, not to bend, not to be quiet and accept things. So you have to speak your mind, and sometimes you have to raise your voice, and sometimes you have to stand up. And but you know, I always say that it's while we swim against the current that we build muscle.
Exactly.
So I think that today I can say with confidence that I'm muscled.
Definitely. So what do you think right now that is the biggest barrier that women reaching leadership positions in STEM have? Like when you were to your career, scientific career at the university in academia, what was the main barriers that you found in there, and then that you can discuss?
I think that, you know, it's a cliche to say that, you know, men are they show solidarity to each other, and that the women don't do it as much. I think there is a little bit of truth in that, but in general, I would say that it depends on the person, each person. And I along my career, I have found this, that I have friends or colleagues that have become my friends, and even I can say that some of them have become my family, because when I came here, I didn't have family. So these colleagues and co-students became my family, and I can trust them with a lot. I can trust them with my children, I can trust them with my secrets, I can trust them with my ambitions and my goals. But this is a very, very small group of people. Then you have the ones that are your allies, people that are there of both sexes, that think like you, think alike, and have the same goals. And for example, you know, I know that sometimes maybe I'm more Catholic than the Pope, and I am very strong with ethics, and I'm very strong with rights and defending rights and protecting the vulnerable, and the equity and fairness and justice and giving everybody the same opportunity. But not everybody is like that. So I find that my allies are colleagues and friends that think like me, like-minded, and like the same goals, and so we can walk together.
Yes.
But then you have the people that they don't care, so they are just there, and you have to go reach them and try to convince them if you need their votes, you need their support. And of course, there is the people that is completely opposed to that. And sometimes it's because they are in conflict of interest. They are in conflict with other things, and that they are in roles that they're not supposed to be. And then you realize that despite of the fact that a situation appears very clear and very logical and reasonable, people will be against that. Yeah. And then you come to know that it's because there are other interests that comes in conflict with that. And so this, I'm not calling them enemies, but there are these people. And so sometimes you don't do nothing, but these people coming and putting obstacles to you. So you have to learn, okay, what do I do in this case? What do I do in this other case? And sometimes you have to be diplomatic. Yeah. But sometimes you have to be straight, and sometimes you have to be direct. And this is where, it depends on the personality. And I think that in the case of women, we are not prepared for that. So it's something that we learn in the job.
Did you, from those experiences, there was one specific case where you experienced any type of discrimination or harassment, and what was the approach that you took to overpass that moment?
Yes, I am trying to think. There are not so many occasions, no, because I have a very strong character, and I am able to defend myself. But I was thinking that I have witnessed many times harassment, bullying, injustice, preferences, manipulation of processes to favor something, a situation. And sometimes I have won my cases, and I have succeed in redressing some situations. Sometimes no. So I like to say that, and very recently I asked that too, because this is also happening in the Senate. So I was saying, well, when I was younger and I was doing these things, putting myself in this situation of defending some positions, and I was not that strong, I will lose feathers. Yeah. But it seems that now I don't lose so many feathers. Mm-hmm. So I keep the integrity, and I'm learning while I'm older. Yeah. So I have more tools. Definitely. In my toolbox.
Now let's talk a bit more about your immigration story. Like you came to Canada, so what brought you here, and what made you realize that this was the country that you wanted to stay permanently? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mentioned that I fall in love with a person from Quebec, and that the reason because I immigrated was because we got married, and I had a beautiful in-law family that welcomed and hosted me and gave me the affection when I arrived. So that was incredibly good. And I had with this person 3 children. So they are now 31, 28, and then 19. And I am presently a grandmother. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. But life is full of surprises. Yeah. So after 20 years, I divorced from my first husband, and I am now a newly wed, newly wife. But it's been 10 years I am living with my companion, with my present husband, and we are happy grandparents, And yeah, family-wise, we are the typical Latino family. Mm-hmm. And I think that here they appreciate that, because my ex-husband, my husband always appreciated the fact that big families, big parties, lot of food, lots of music, and outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so that Latin part, it will never die. Mm-hmm. It's always there. I enjoy very much cooking, hosting, and playing and dancing, and so I think that we need to have equilibrium in life. We cannot be just work.
Yes. Definitely.
So I think the 3 pillars are that. It's like your your loisir, your leisure time, and then your family time, and then your work, and then you have to go around these three and find that at the end of the day you had a happy day. It could be, not happy at home for some reason, or at work, or that you're not performing in your favorite sport. But at the end of the day, one of those was did well, and so at the end of the day, you are happy, and the next day you're happy to wake up and go to your work or to your family, and so I think that's the way I approach life.
Definitely. So from that experience, when you arrived to Canada, how was that first year? We all as immigrants, we go through that rough time of missing family, missing your food, missing many things. How was that experience? How was the major culture shock that you found? How did you adjust to the weather in Canada? So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, yes. I arrived to Toronto Airport, and it was the first time I had taken a long flight. It's like, I think it's 10 hours or something from Lima. And it was in beginning of March. And I remember coming out of that plane, and for some reason, there was no enough isolation of the corridor. So there was this wind that passed through, and it was freezing. And I remember saying, we all think that, hell is hot, but I think that hell can be cold too. So, I was scared. I never felt that degree of temperature so cold, but life, you pass by different stages. When I first arrived in Canada, my favorite season, it was summer. But then later, it was spring. And now, my favorite season is fall. I just love the colors. I think the important thing is to go out and enjoy the seasons and go with the weather. Summer, spring is for gardening, is for growing your vegetables, and put your hands in the soil, in your flowers, and smell all the others and see all the colors. So that it is. And in winter, get out and enjoy the snow and see the clean sky, and go do some cross-country ski or and that's the way to live.
Indeed, that's pretty much. I totally agree with that. Like, that's how I take life nowadays after 12 years living in Canada. Embrace the weather and go out, because otherwise you will really hibernate, and that's not good for your health. So, okay, so now let's shift gears a bit more to what you do today. So we talk about you as a woman in science, you as an immigrant, which that's why this is the perfect example for our network as Immigrant Women in Science. But today you are a senator, and you are the first female and Latino senator in Canada. So why inspired you to be here and to run for this office?
Yeah, that was a very interesting situation, because I have followed politics, but always from a side. When you are an engineer in Canada, your career is framed by and directed by laws and bills and regulations. So we don't have choice but to keep up with what is going on in politics and its legislation. Construction, infrastructure, environment. It depends a lot on the will of politics. This liberal government put in its platform before the election that they were going to modernize the way the nomination process for senators, and they said that it was going to be an independent committee, and it would be based on merit and on the experience and on the accomplishments of the candidates. So when I applied for the 6th post in my province, there were, I heard, 4,000 candidates that applied, so very fine people. So I was really surprised when the Prime Minister Trudeau called me because, you know, you always have suspicions that it could be arranged somehow, this contest, but I didn't have any recommendation letter or anybody that can push for my file. So I put in my application form what I thought I could do for the Senate, and I put my CV, and I asked people to witness about my experience, and then I left it to, you know, I just throw the dice, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So then I just waited, and so I was very happy to hear the news that I was retained, and I was happy to be nominated. And but now that happiness it's not over, but now it's, you know, a reality. It's my new reality, and so in my new reality, I am the first Latino senator. But I am also the only engineer that is in the Senate, and I'm the only scientist, and I also carry the hat of having an Aboriginal origin, indigenous origin. So I have my own personal goals with respect to my career and my vision, but I must also follow some of the expectations of the different communities. So as somebody from Quebec, I am very proud that we have in Quebec 99% of our electricity is renewable, from renewable sources. I am very, very proud that our environmental impact assessment system works, and we haven't had any scandal or any bad luck or bad process. We consult, and so I'm very happy about that. We have a very nice diversified economy, and we receive immigrants, and we have French as our language. So all of this for me is extremely important. Then of course we have the Latin American community, which is very big in whole Canada, and we pass a bill to recognize that the presence and the impact of the Latin American culture in the Canadian culture. So last year we passed a bill that determines, that sets that each October we will celebrate the Heritage Month of Latino inheritance. So that is very important. And well, now the other things is environment, the energy, the economy. So I'm the chair of this very important committee, which presently is studying Bill 69, which is the modernization of the Environmental Impact Act, and modernization of the Energy Board. So these are very important bills. I also participate in the development of the Arctic, because in the Arctic is where climate change has its biggest impact in whole Canada, so this is very important. And then the interparliamentary friendships, it's also important to go out and reach other parliamentarians around the world. Mm-hmm. So I am the vice president of the Canadian fraction of Parlaméricas, and I am the president of the Friendship of Peru, Canada Parliamentary Friendship. So there is a lot in my plate, and I wish the days could have more than 24 hours, because I will be glad to do more. But again, we have to find equilibrium with the fact that I'm a new grandmother. So yeah,
indeed. Well, I was gonna ask about the bills that you have been involved, and you pretty much mentioned all of them. And like I say, I mean, it's fantastic all the work that you're doing. Maybe you can mention a bit more what kind of what role do you think policy plays in the sense of empowering women in STEM in general?
So we have seen in the last, I would say, 10 years, a distrust of public in the democratic institutions. You know, that's one of the reasons that I also said, okay, let's try to make a change. And I think that this distrust has some basis for it. I think that a lot of wealth has developed in many countries, underdeveloped countries and developed countries. A lot of wealth has been created, but it has been distributed in a very, very unfair and just manner. And so the inequalities has been increased. And with that, then we have put the vulnerable people more vulnerable. And the strong and the elite has become with higher powers. And I think that we must do something in order to re-equilibrate the situation, because otherwise we will go again and again into distrusting governments. So one thing that I am supporting 100% is open parliaments. And in open parliaments mean so transparency, ethics, accountability, and so like the people can always ask, what are you been doing? In what are you expending the money, the taxpayer money? And are you thinking in our future and our future generations? And what is your policy with respect to what is happening with climate change and pollution? You know, we see plastic in the oceans. Is it normal that we find plastic in whales or in sea lions, and or that bees, which are an important insect for in the whole function of the ecology, where humans we belong to that web too. So what are we doing for that? And so is it just economics for that, for the sake of economics, or is it economics in order to have prosperity, in order to have higher quality of life, in order to have a fair social fabric, that we can go outside and not be scared of violence or criminality, or you know. So I think that that those are the things that I want to defend.
That's excellent. So going back a little bit of the immigrant side of things, recently Van City released a report that say that immigrants have 50% chance of getting a job in their field of expertise. So what can be done to mitigate this and to allow or to mitigate the immigrant and underemployment issues that we have?
Yes, I think that this is going to become more and more important, because in Canada, because the Canadian population is the rate of reproduction and birth, it's slowing down, no? So the economy, if they want to continue at this rhythm, they must welcome immigrants. But it's not only opening the doors to immigrants, it is introducing them to a new system, which is not necessarily from where they come from, and facilitating this integration.
Yes.
And integrating the social fabric, not in ghettos or as isolated groups, but integrated themselves in the society. So Canada has a nice model, but I think that the levels of the number of immigrants that will need will test that model, and we have to be careful that the model is flexible and the model has capacity to accept. There are areas in which we will need immigrants for sure. You know, STEM is the science, engineering, mathematics, technology. This is an important area where we need women and men in this area, and we are living the fourth industrial revolution, which is meaning that the type of work that existed in the past probably is going to change and shift. There is a lot of automatization, and there is a lot of informatics and artificial intelligence, and lots of a revolution. and we have to prepare the people with good skills to enter this new era. And so the role of the government is very important.
Indeed. So to close our interview today, so what is your advice to women in STEM and to immigrants and visible minorities to overcome barriers that they have in their careers and in the development of their goals, of achieving their goals?
I will start by, don't be shy, ask the questions, and because sometimes, opportunities are there, but we think we won't be able, or they won't choose me, and we start putting ourselves obstacles. So the first is to ourselves take out the obstacles and say, I can do this, I can do this. Give yourself a chance. We cannot know everything from day one, but we can learn. So say, okay, I don't know today, but I know where to find the information. I know I can get better at this with language, with the skills, with the knowledge. The network is very important. We know that alone by myself I can go to a certain distance, but when we have a support group, we can make this distance longer. So network is very important. And I think the last one is not forgetting the emotional part and the personal and the social part of it, which is establishing links not only with our own kind, but with the whole fabric of the social, because Canada has lots of immigrants from all over the world, and it's important, it's nice to meet people from around the world.
And it's amazing when you meet people from all different cultures, right? Like
absolutely, really, I love Indian cooking. It's one of my favorite, and yes, and we have a lot of things in common. When you start discussing, you see that you like nature, that you like cooking, you like spicy, you like music, and
that's what I love indeed from Canada. Like in my neighborhood, I have pretty much like a little world around all my neighbors. So that's the awesome part of that. Okay, so well, thank you so much again for having us today. So as I say, you are a perfect example of what this network is. You are a woman, you are an immigrant, and you have achieved so much, and now you're doing so much for our country as in your senator role. So thank you so much for still doing what you're doing.